Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, the country is in ruins, the economy is in tatters, and an 18-member military council remains at the helm of government. Now, 5 months after mass protests toppled President Hosni Mubarak, many of the protesters who did the toppling say that they are frustrated at the very slow pace of change. Now, in recent days, we have seen clashes between protesters and police in the staging ground of Egypt's revolution, Tahrir Square, and tensions remain quite high. Now, my guest today, Ahmed Naguib, welcome. You are one of the young Egyptians who actually helped spark the revolution. You are part of a council called the Council of Trustees of the Revolution in Egypt. And I guess what that means is you are trying to keep up the pressure on this military council so that they follow through on their promises to usher in civilian rule. Tell us, though, a little bit more about it.
Well, first of all, I took my grievances to the streets of Cairo just like everyone else on the 25th and the 26th. And the 28th, I went and took 5 of my family members to a local mosque, and we marched for 20 kilometers until we reached Tahrir. And we started by 5 people, and we ended up being over 30,000 people.
It's like the Pied Piper. You just kept picking up people as you went along.
Absolutely.
How many people were already in the square when you got there?
Hundreds of thousands.
Okay, so it was already, the revolution was already sort of going on when you got there.
20 kilometers, we've marched for over 2.5 hours, so.
Now, Ahmed, as we know, it lasted 18 days. We all remember those jubilant pictures of everyone cheering. There were millions of Egyptians all over the place. Now they're back in Tahrir Square, but they're not all cheering now. There's been a lot of tension, there have been clashes. This revolution it could start again any time, it seems.
It hasn't ended to start with. It's far from ending anytime soon. In the history of revolution all around the world, there has never been a revolution that takes place in 2-3 months or 2-3 weeks, and that's it. The French Revolution took around 3 years. The Egyptian Revolution in 1919 took a couple of years, and the products or the outcomes of those revolutions, surface years sometimes after the revolution itself, because you set the foundation for a democracy, and you reap or harvest the outcomes of those democracies years after. So we are still facing a lot of challenges. The young people are very frustrated. First of all, we brought this change, and we are not represented in government nor in any part of the decision-making process, which is still quite an enigma, because the military council is the head of the state, and we do not know how they take their decisions or formulate an opinion and pass on those decisions.
So what, none of the young protesters who were sort of most present and dominant in Tahrir Square, they're not represented in any way, shape, or form in the government right now?
No. Unlike Tunisia, which has an interim parliament or representation from different groups passing laws, having the rights to pass laws, Egypt does not have anything of the sort. It's just military generals who were chosen by the former regime to take the whole decision-making process into their hands, solely in their hands, which is frustrating because it's a mystery. We don't know how it happens, and at the same time does not fulfill the needs and the demands of the revolution and the Egyptians.
Well, how are you bringing this pressure to bear? How are you making your desires, your wishes felt and known to this council?
Yes. Well, we have played the Tahrir card many, many times. We have concerns that we might be consuming it, draining it. However, it still works. It's the only card that works with the military council.
You say, we're going to Tahrir Square, and they get scared.
Yes. But right now, if they continue with the disenfranchisement of young people and the same marginalization and the same discourse that is not very far from the previous regime, unfortunately, I think we'll be on a collision course with the council. And Egyptians usually like to make it clear that there's a difference between the military council and the army, because we believe that the army is with the people. The military council, most of them were retired generals that were brought back into enrollment in the military by the Minister of Defense.
By the Minister of Defense. Do you feel that this military council is still very partial to former members of the Mubarak government?
To a great extent, I do believe so, because in times of revolution, those who were corrupt, people like Mubarak, it doesn't take 4 or 5 months to put them on trial. And I think this slow reactions are not just frustrating, but they cast a lot of doubts and dubiousness on the performance of this council.
Some specifics here. The slow reactions. We heard, I believe it was last week, some police officers. It was in Alexandria. Yes. They were released by a judge on bail. These were officers who were facing trial for being involved in the killing of protesters. Their relatives were outraged, infuriated. There were clashes in that. What's behind that? Do you think that's partiality?
Well, we have two more challenges: the independence of judiciary, which is not there yet, and the other thing is that the current Minister of Interior was out of the ministry for 15 years and he was brought back. So he's quite detached and he has no real leverage over the old generals in the Ministry of Interior. So not only those 5 officers were not suspended, they should have been suspended, they were actually promoted into sensitive positions.
They were promoted into higher levels
Yes.
of responsibility, even though they were still facing trial. They were released on bail.
Yes.
And
the military council knows all of this, and this is why we have a lot of question marks on the performance and the decisions they make.
Ahmed, let me play devil's advocate. Revolutions, like you said, they don't happen overnight. They take time. This military council isn't perfect. It's a transitional body. Give them a little bit of time. Be a little patient. Give them the benefit of the doubt.
To some extent, yes, you are right. However, there are things that should have not taken so long for them to undertake, such as dissolving the municipalities, which was controlled by the National Democratic Party, and changing the governors.
That was, by the way, Mubarak's party, the NDP.
That was the ruling party. Right. The governors, or same machine that produced those governors from the Mubarak regime, which is retired military and police generals taking over governors' positions. All of this has not changed. And this has caused a lot of strife for people all across the country. So the decisions sometimes are counterproductive. And the thing is that they do not consult the revolutionists. They meet with them, but they don't do anything with whatever they discuss, which is very frustrating for us.
So there's a little bit of a sense of remoteness there. Mubarak himself, he might be out of the picture, but he's still very much on Egyptians' minds. He's actually facing trial in early August. And the charges he faces actually carry the death penalty. Some people fear this could be extremely divisive for Egypt, more than a unifying force.
I don't think so. I mean, everyone thinks that Mubarak needs to be trialed because if we trial him, if we put him on trial and pass a sentence on him, I don't think any president in the future or any leader in the future, not just in Egypt but the entire Arab world, maybe perhaps even the world at large, will fear the same predicament. So it's very important to set an example of Mubarak and his likes.
Even at the risk of stirring up a lot of anger among people who still might support Mubarak.
That's a very small number of people.
Okay. Very small. Yeah, I want to ask you about the broader Arab revolutions. Obviously, began in Tunisia, and you were telling me earlier that actually you're trying to coordinate a joint committee with members of the Tunisian revolution. Tell me a little bit about those efforts.
I think there were plenty of lessons learned from both revolutions, and at the beginning of ours, there was a lot of inspiration that came from Tunisia, and even tactics. There were a couple of websites and on Facebook as well that told us exactly what to do.
How-to guide.
Yes, exactly. And take vinegar with you, the masks and all that. It was very important. How to disperse the groups in different directions when you were attacked. This was very useful. So the lessons learned then were very useful. I think what we need now is more of a political coordination, because it seems that our destiny seems to be intertwined. In such a way that our progress and our success is very important for each country to push the other.
Because you're in similar situations, aren't you? Tunisia's having
many ways.
A difficult post-revolution as well.
Yes. They're in much better position because the people are empowered. We are not in Egypt. However, the rest of the Arab world is, depending and looking up to both revolutions to become successful. Because if the Egyptian model and the Tunisian model are successful, Syria will have a better chance, Yemen will have a better chance, Libya will have a better chance, and
You have to
so
set
on.
an example in a
Yes.
sense right now. It's very early days. We all know that. You've said that. At this point, what would you say is the most significant outcome so far of Tahrir Square?
I believe we're not going to definitely go back. There is a degree of freedom and democracy that has been established. It's not what the Mubarak regime used to call marginal democracy. I think we've established something more than that, which is that we've regained our dignity as citizens of this country, and we feel that we have a stake at it right now. It's our country. The sense of ownership that was absent for over 30 years was regained. So these are extremely important. And not just that, but people are now not afraid to express themselves. So these are great achievements.
Dignity, a word we often hear. We're going to have to leave it at that. I'm sorry we have run out of time, but Ahmed Naguib, a man with a very difficult job right now, trying to keep the pressure up on your country's military council, which is promised to usher the way to elections, I believe, this autumn, correct?
Yes, correct.
And then presidential elections either later this year or early next year.
Yes, correct.
I wish you luck. You're with the Council of Trustees for the Revolution in Egypt. We've obviously been talking today about the Tahrir Square, the aftermath, and what's next in Egypt after its revolution. You've been watching the interview here on France 24.